Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me at this Hermanti Ki Adaber space where, where we just get together and increase our daily capacity for Emuna. That's really what it's about. And Emuna, as we're going to be hearing today from Reb Asher, that Emuna is something that takes a lot of work. It's not something, nobody is born with Emuna, really. No one is born with Emuna. It's something that we have to work on. And Rosh says we have to work at it hard. It's one of the hardest things to actually integrate and really acquire because you could Rabasha, as we're going to hear, so I'm just going to get into it in a minute. But basically, it says you could do mitzvahs all day long and still not have emunah. So whilst the mitzvahs have the capacity to bring us to emunah, and certainly one of the main purposes of the mitzvahs is to bring us to emunah, but that's only if we have the intention that we want to come to a deeper emunah through the shmiras and mitzvahs. If we want to do mitzvahs for our own honor, to make us look good, because it's socially acceptable, we're not going to grow in emunah through that. Okay, Parshas Vo'era, Be'ez Hashem. Emuna Lemaisa. How do we acquire practical emuna? A real daily working, something that we can work with, something that we can live with. So Rabasha begins by saying that every makkah, again, here we are in the parshas where HaKadosh Baruch Hu starts shmeising. He starts sending down the makkahs to the Mitzrim, to Parai. And so we're talking about the makkahs that we get in life. And I don't know about all of you, but I keep hearing more and more and more and more and more of the craziest stories. And we wonder, like, I don't know how people are managing with the kinds of things that are happening. There's a lot of stuff happening all around the world. People are challenged in big ways. So when we're talking about the makkahs that the Mitzrim got, Rabash is talking about the makkahs that we get. We get all kinds of things that come at us in our lives. Big hits. We take some big hits. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings down from Shemayim a makkah, some kind of a painful jolting situation on our heads. Its purpose is to wake us up from our deep sleep. Now, when people hear that, people start to think, I'm terrible, I'm awful, what Hashem's punishing me. Yes, your life is difficult and your heart is heavy, and I'm so sorry that you are struggling and in so much pain. And I'm the pain of everybody is just so deep and wide. And thank you for being here in a space where we all try together to strengthen ourselves. The pain comes to wake us up from our sleep. Now, it doesn't mean that we're not awake a little bit, okay? Ani yeshena v'libi er, it says in Shir Hashirim. I'm asleep, but my heart is awake. The hearts of all of us are awake. And sometimes we all slough. We're all a little bit sleeping when it comes to avodas Hashem. And we cannot expect perfection of ourselves. And we don't think that we're perfect. And so we all know that we need to grow in some way, right? No, none of us would put our hands up and say, I don't need to grow in any way. On the contrary, everyone here and everybody who's listening to this recording is a person who is growing and wants to grow in Emunah. So certainly, if someone asked a question, who wants to grow in Emunah? You would say, yes, I want to. And what's the way to grow in Emunah? To get a mak off the cup, to get some kind of a jolting, painful situation that then we have to work with and grow our emunah in the face of that situation. That's how we grow in emunah. And it would be so pleasant and sweet if we could grow in emunah, on dry days without having too much challenges. We would like to be able to grow in Amuna, with strawberries and cream. Why do we need to grow in Amuna through painful situations? Except that that's the only way that it works, unfortunately. So if we get a challenge, and first of all, let's really try and integrate this truth. If we have a challenge in our lives, a new one or an old one, an acute one or a chronic one, it's not because we're bad, and it's not because we need punishment. It's because the Kodesh Baruch Hu is saying, you can grow, and I see you can grow, and so I am giving you this opportunity to grow. That's what it is. Hashem is saying, I see that a part of you is still asleep. Okay, a part of you that you could be actualizing in your personal growth and in your connection to me, to Kodesh Baruch Hu. You could be using it, but it's asleep. So I want to wake that part up. That's what a Kodesh Baruch Hu is doing when he sends us a makkah, when he sends us some kind of jolting, painful situation. It's to wake up that part of ourselves that is sleeping. It doesn't mean that we're horrible. It doesn't mean that we could have avoided it. It means that Hashem has identified that there's more inside us. Yes, we're growing, and there's more. So it's in a weird kind of a way. I know it sounds strange, but it's good news. Okay, it's good news. It shows us. It's good news because it shows us that we have the capacity to do more. Okay, so I'm trying to help us out of the sad feeling that we have. There's the pain, but then there's the sadness that if I wouldn't have needed this, if I would have been bed, if I could have just done that mitzvah or this mitzvah, there's no way that we're perfect. Okay, none of us are perfect. That means that all of us have sleeping cells. All of us have sleeper cells of emunah that we're not yet using. And the painful situations of our life are given to us as a gift to bring out the emunah. And so these painful situations come to remind us that there is a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and he rules everything. And he is the one who is encouraging us to change our way, in some way. Hashem is saying there's more. In some way you're sleeping on God. Okay, you're on guard of your soul. We are on guard of the Torah mitzvahs, and in some way we've been sleeping. In some way, and it's a call to us. And if we listen to the call, then we will be gathered back in and drawn close to Kadosh Baruch Hu. But what happens most of the time, said Rav Asher, who guided a generation and knew thousands and thousands of followers and guided so many people in the right path. Instead of arousing ourselves to wake up those sleepy parts of ourselves into avodas Hashem, what happens to a person? He's broken. He gets broken down and he falls into despair. And when you ask, what's going on? How are you? He answers, Shem Yirachem, Shem should have mercy upon me. And Rav Asher says, if he would say those words, that Hashem should have mercy on me with emunah, with a pure heart, then that alone would have achieved the purpose of the makkah. Those words saying, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should have mercy upon me. When we mean it, that's the purpose of the makkah. So from here we understand that it's the emunah, it's the turning to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that is the purpose of that pain. And if we would, and when we do, then we're fulfilling the purpose. We are waking up the sleeping parts of ourselves that needed to be woken up. The pain is that for so much of the time, or for so many people that Rav Asher was encountering, the words that a person said, that Hashem Yishmor, or Hashem Yirachem, Hashem should have Rahmanas on me, it was from the mouth out. It's just lip service. It's not it's not from the heart. It wasn't a call from the heart. It wasn't a deep awareness that I'm in a Kadosh Baruch Hu's hands, and everything is only Kadosh Baruch Hu, and there is no one else to turn to. And there's a reason, and the reason why Hashem gave me this is only that I should turn to him more. So Russia continues by telling us about the Khartoumim, the magicians that were in Paro's uh, office, in his court. They all said at the third plague, Et Spelukimhu, it's the finger of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. This is beyond anything that we could do. Okay, this is already a God who is in heaven and earth. And even though they came to that recognition, but they didn't change the way they were acting. They didn't bring it down into Lamaisa. They didn't change their daily what they were doing. They didn't integrate and say, well, if I believe that there is a Olam running Shemayim Ba'aretz, don't I have to live with that awareness? And then ask ourselves the question. Okay, this is the operative question. If there's a Kodesh Baruch Hu b'Shemayim Ba'aretz, if there's a Shem who's in heaven and earth, and he does everything, and nothing can happen within him, are there any elements of my life that are not lined up with that truth? And it doesn't mean that we have to be perfect, but it means that we seek a Kadosh Baruch Hu in those areas. We get on the improvement train. We look into, we recognize it, and we first of all admit it to Kadosh Baruch Hu, and we say, okay, I recognize that this part of my behavior, whatever it is, it's not in alignment with the knowledge that you, Ribono Shel Olam, are everything. So why didn't the Khartoumim, the magicians in Paro's court, why didn't they change? Because when they said, Et Belukim, this is the finger of a Kodesh Baruch Hu, they didn't allow it to penetrate. Just what he was saying here. They left it at lip service, but they didn't allow the consciousness to actually sink in. It takes time to change our consciousness. It takes time to change the way that we think about something. And if we just let ourselves say it without the intention to actually change us, without really thinking about what we're saying, without having consciousness of it, it's not gonna have the effect. It's fascinating, but there was I remember in one of the series that I gave, I had a series of the Think Positive series for a few years, a certain group in Yerushalayim, and one of the ladies, she went to go and give birth, Be'ez Hashem, Baruch Hashem, she had a healthy baby, and she said that the staff didn't really know what to do with her, because when she was saying, Hashem is taking care of this, she really meant it. And she said she was used to hearing all people around saying Be'ez Hashem, and Hashem is going to do it, but then she understood that they were really still locked into negative thinking and into a lot of anxiety that they weren't working through, and she could just hear from the way they were saying things that it was just lip service. And she said when she was saying, I really believe that a Kodesh Baruch is making whatever this is, like the labor was intense, and there were different moments where the staff were tense, and she was, even in those moments, she was really able to stay very calm, very focused, attached to a Kodesh Baruch Hu, because she'd been practicing daily for years, thinking, speaking, acting with Emunah. And it's very hard to acquire Emunah in the delivery room. That's not the place to start working on our Emunah. It definitely could be a catalyst for an opportunity to work on it in the future. We don't get Emunah the moment we decide, well, I really need Emunah now. The time to work on our Emunah is in the calmer days, or when things are not a crisis, but when crises come, when the market comes, when painful situations come, that's the opportunity to say, okay, Hashem is saying that there's a part of me that's still sleeping. I'm gonna do what I can do now to wake up those parts of myself. Maybe I thought that I was fully awake, but we know that science teaches us that most people don't use the largest percentage of of our brain capacity we're not using. So no one has to no one has to be hurt by the fact that Hashem is telling us, I've identified some sleeping parts of your capacity. We all have sleeping parts of our capacity. On the contrary, what Hashem is doing for us is he's showing us this is how you can fix it. This is how you can wake up. It's a gift for anybody who wants to grow. A challenge is actually Kodesh Baruch Hu saying, you want to grow? Here, it's packaged for you exactly how you can grow. I have included in this deal for you everything that you need for your heart, mind, and soul to wake up all of the parts that weren't fully engaged with me and bring them into play, into action. That's what every nisayon that we have, every trial, every test that we have, that's what it's for. And instead of sinking into despair, which is where again we often find ourselves sinking into despair. That despair is the moment where we say, well, I shouldn't be in this kind of situation. And everybody has those moments. Doesn't mean that we can't have those moments, but what it means is that when we have those overwhelming kinds of feelings that drag us down and make us feel like, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this, we let the emotion pass. We let it wash over us, and we remind ourselves at that moment, right now I'm feeling despairing. Right now I'm feeling hopeless and helpless. It's a feeling. It doesn't represent the reality. Okay, it's a valid feeling. That's what I'm feeling, but it does not represent the reality. And soon this feeling will pass. And Be'ez Hashem, something new and better is going to come. And Hashem is going to guide me how to manage this storm that I'm in. Okay. In fact, in a different place, Rabasha said that in our lifetime, we swing between two extremes: the extreme of yush, of despair, and gaiva, pride in ourselves. When we're happy, we feel successful. We feel, oh, I did it. We think, I deserve this. I deserve this success. It's mine because I did this mitzvah. I've davened so hard. So we forget a Kodesh Baruch Hu because we feel successful. And then we swing to yush. It didn't work out. It wasn't what we wanted. We weren't successful. And then we blame ourselves and we say, and we feel yush. This is the human experience, says Rabasha. So again, it's not to blame us. It's just to realize this is the human condition. Okay, in between the swing of I did it, I'll never do it. I'll did it, I'll never do it. Okay, I'm great, I'm worthless. Okay, between those two extremes, and anyone, if we've never recognized in ourselves that we feel that, then we're not human. Okay, so again, it's not to say we shouldn't be doing that. It's to recognize that that's our experience. That's where we are. And so our job is to try and bring ourselves back to Menuchas Nefesh. Back to, as Rebbetzin Greenberg Aleh Shalom would say, you're not that bad. You're not that great either. You're normal. Everyone needs someone in our lives who can say, you're not that bad and you're not that great either. You're normal. Okay, that's what a good friend can do. And so that's what Rabasha wants us to know. We're not that bad and we're not that great. We're not ticking all the boxes. We don't have to. And we're also not that terrible. We're not at the 49th level of Tuma. We're not on the brink of disappearing. Yes, there are big, painful challenges in our lives. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to help us through them. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu created everything. So, how do we help ourselves to integrate Emunah? I want us to do a little bit of a review of Jewish positive thinking that I'm sure so many of us remember. I just want to share a beautiful story that actually a listener just shared with me today. And it's so cute to be able to share real life stories again. She said, I want to thank you for your amazing shirim, such MS, of which I've listened to so many. I've recently been in a difficult period and I couldn't figure out what I was missing. So last week I went back to my notes from positive thinking and I discovered that I was fearing more than I was hoping. Something so simple but so mind-changing. So I began to replace my thoughts with those of hope deeply. And the Yeshuas I've seen in only the last 5 days are amazing. B'chasdei Hashem, may it continue. So when she says, I changed my thoughts to those of hope, but deeply, okay, she found herself in yield. She found herself fearful. And again, it's normal. We're going to do that. And then the opportunity that's given to us is, okay, what are you going to do? How are you going to realign yourself with the truth of emunah and bitachon? And when we do it deeply, when we actually sit with it, when we give ourselves the time, Be'ez Hashem, we're going to be able to shift how we feel, and emunah brings results. Of course, that's not going to change everything, but it definitely can bring incredible results. As Rav Avram Chaim Carmel told me in a conversation that I had with him about emunah, he says, emunah makes the miracle more likely. Emunah makes it more likely that we will get the outcome that we want. It doesn't mean that it's for sure going to happen, but it does make it more likely. So let's understand one thing. Darkei hahashava el halev. Rav Dessler brings down in Michtav Me'Eliyahu in a whole chapter devoted to the ways to integrate things into our hearts. How do we integrate it? How do we stop it just being lip service? He brings down the altar of Kelm, Rav Simcha Zissel Broider, who said, ask the question, how did the Abbas and the Gedolim of previous generations achieve their levels? How was their strength greater than ours? And he answers that they knew the tremendous power of Tzirei Halev, of the imagination. He says the Yetzer Hara knows this secret. That's where the Yetzer Hara lives. The Yetzer Hara lives in our imagination, b'dimyon. That's where the Yetzer Hara lives. The Yetzer Hara flashes us pictures, fearful pictures, okay, frightening pictures, pictures of that will make us despair, pictures that will make us worry and scared. That's what the Yetzer Hara does. It flashes something into our imagination. For some of us, it's going to be a visual flash. For some of us, it's going to be an audio flash. It's also really important. One of the things that I learned through the 25 years of supporting women in how to understand and navigate the landscape of our imagination is that some women, some people, but most the people that I know are women, our imagination works in sound, in thoughts, in conversation, or in words and sounds. Some people, their imagination is only in conversations with other people, not just a soundtrack, but actual conversations. And they don't see things in pictures, but they hear conversations. That's how the imagination works. So we need to understand our own imagination. And then we learn how to input new slides or new soundtracks into our imagination. So the Yetzer Hara knows the secret, and we need to fight with his weapon, says Rav Dessler, to increase the use of pictures. Again, Rav Dessler calls it pictures, but I want to enlarge it to include soundtracks, just because I've experienced so many women who did not see anything in their mind. Their mind did not work in pictures. Tzirei Halev really means our imagination, the dimyon, and it doesn't only have to be pictures, but to use then our imagination from the side of holiness. From whatever happens in the world, we can take live pictures to heal our spirits and learn emunah and bitachon from everything in pictures, or rather in our imagination. Yechezkel Levenstein says that we should try to recreate the scene of Yetzias Mitzrayim in our minds in order to feel what it was like to come out of Mitzrayim. When we read these parshios and we read about the Makkos, we were encouraged to really imagine it in our minds. Rav Wolbe says, when we say in davening in the mornings, you brought us close to your service, we should imagine that we are standing at Har Sinai. That we stood at Har Sinai, and this will arouse the proper emotion. The reason why we find it hard to daven is because we're looking at a page with little letters and on a page, and that doesn't conjure up necessarily any pictures in our mind. Okay, what we need to do, in fact, the Anshe Knesset Gedola, they established first of all the emotions that they wanted us to go through in the tefillah, and then they took the words to put to those emotions that would arouse those emotions. So our job is to try and engage our mind and our imagination in the scenes that are being described in the tefillah, and that will then inspire us to feel something during tefillah. It will connect us to our davening much more. The Mishnah Berurah brings down that before davening, we can imagine ourselves. We should imagine ourselves in the Beis Hamikdash before Kadosh Baruch Hu. He should think in his heart and in his rayon, in his imagination. He should imagine as if he's standing in the Beis Hamikdash in Yerushalayim, in the place of the Holy of Holies. In real life, we will not be invited into Kodesh Kodeshim, but in our minds, we are allowed to go there every time we daven. And when we practice this, when we really use our imagination, that's how we can take our emunah just from lip service and actually bring it into our lives in a much more tangible way. So let's all decide that Be'ez Hashem, after we finish today, I want us all to think of a situation in our lives. And I want us to try and identify, maybe you can even do it now, what are the frightening pictures or soundtracks that you're playing to yourself in your mind? We may not even realize that that's what we're doing. Okay, we just think, well, that's me. That's just how I think. We don't realize that's actually the Yetzer Hara trying to bring us down. And so our imagination plays for us all kinds of games. It plays all kinds of soundtracks and sends pictures into our mind. And our job then, as per the Torah of Rav Dessler, is to think, okay, what am I going to put in instead? What's the picture? What's the soundtrack? What I want to put into my imagination instead of that? Okay, and this is what Rav Dessler says. This is what the Avos did. We know this from Yosef, that Yosef imagined the face of his father. That's what saved him, was imagining the face of his father. And for all of us, there's something that we can imagine that's going to help us, maybe whether it's going to soothe us, whether it's going to inspire us, whether it's going to help us in whatever way. Okay, let's identify the one most frightening or anxiety and stress producing image or sound that comes into our minds throughout the days, and choose something that would be an expression of our emunah instead. If I wanted to integrate ever more deeply and wake up the emunah that I have in this area, what picture would I show myself? What sound would I hear? What would I tell myself? What conversation would I hear? Would I hear a voice of Hashem talking to me, telling me something? That's how we can live our emunah. That's one of the ways that we can integrate emunah b'tachon and bring ourselves from yiush or from gaiva to the middle path, which is peace of mind, which is it's all in Hashem's hands. Everything is as it's supposed to be. It's unfolding where Kadosh Baruch Hu has decided. I'm being guided to what my particular role is. Nothing in my reality right now could have been the way that it is if it wasn't exactly what Hashem has decided. No one else can impact me. Only Kadosh Baruch Hu. And Hashem is listening to me. Choose a picture. Choose a phrase. And Be'ez Hashem, we will be able to be not like the Khartoumim, not like the magicians in Pharaoh's court, who, no matter that they had seen the etzba of Hashem, even though they saw miracles, but they weren't prepared to integrate it into their lives. One of the ways that Rav Dessa tells us what the most powerful way to integrate into ourselves, Rav Dessa actually says, Yesh eitza achas, there's one piece of advice, using our imagination, because that's where the Yetzer Hara lives, and that's where we can create the shift that we want to. So if anybody wants to unmute, ask any questions, share anything, I'm just looking at the chat to see if there's anything that you mentioned here. Let's see.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for the amazing class. This is Shirley.
Hi,
you know how you taught us about the being the Benoni, to say you're not that great, you're not that bad. I learned another concept that it says each of us should have in our pocket one paper that says the whole world was created for you, and another pocket that it says I am nobody. So can you please expand on
I am dust and ashes. Yes.
Yeah.
Not I'm nobody, but ani afar ve'isa. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I am dust and ashes. Yes.
Okay. So can you please describe from what you said and this concept and relate them together and what we're supposed to do with both of these things together?
So they're exactly each one relates to what Rav Asher was saying, that there are two that we find ourselves between these two dichotomies, between the gaiva, and the answer to the gaiva is I'm dust and ashes. This body is going to disappear, and I'm not going to be here after 120. None of us are going to be here. So I'm not that great. Meaning I am not everything. I'm not all powerful. I'm at the end of the day, I'm made out of dust and ashes, and I'm a human creation, and the human body is always going to keep dragging me down, and I have failings. So I'm dust and ashes. That's the answer to the gaiva at the one extreme, and the other extreme, which wants me to say that I'm a failure, and wants me to give up, and the yish, the words that I'm just sinking into despair. The opposite and the resolution for that is the other paper that you said we're encouraged to have, which is the whole world was created for me. The whole world is created, everything is created so that I can take this moment of emunah bitachon, so that I can live in this moment with the Kodesh Baruch and not give up, even if it's painful, even if it's hard. And as the king said, the king Chizkiyahu said, even if a sharp sword is resting on a person's throat, he should not give up, even if the resolution seems unlikely. We should never, ever give up. One of my clients just told me recently that she had a child who was in such a serious situation. Like she said, she did not know what was going to be of this child. She really didn't know what's going to be with him. And she said that child today, 30 years later, is one of her most successful children. Never give up, not on ourselves, not on anybody else. We don't know where things are going, but we find ourselves, we need those two pieces of paper, because this is the human experience between gaiva and despair, between pride that I did it, no, you didn't, a Kadosh Baruch Hu did it, you're dust, or I'll never be able to do it. No, it's not that you'll never do it. It's that this moment is created for you to respond with emunah bitachon. And so that's the purpose of our existence, is emunah bitachon. And we're not supposed to be perfect. We aim for it. We aim to keep improving, and we aim to keep away from Averas, and we tread the path between despair and pride. And we're always going to be, as long as we're in this world, we're going to be going between the two. And we need to keep both of those papers in our pockets to help us to get back to the middle path as much as we can, which is holding on to Hashem in the moment, which brings us the menuchas and nefesh, when we can get back to that middle path. I hope that answered that. Thank you for asking, Shirley. I appreciate that.
Chaya, Hinda?
Yes, hi.
Yeah. Question for you. Like, I just want to comment, like you were saying about the davening, like anything, how you bring it more to life, to use imagination. I find that when I daven, even like Shemana Esrei, and I incorporate my own language. Let's say moidim, yeah, and I say I could stop and think, thank you Hashem for this and this. Or let's say when I say nishmas and I say and I start saying about my whole being is in it. I put my own words and connotations in it, so automatically the davening becomes like a whole different davening to me.
Beautiful, gewaldig, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that, Hannah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, appreciate that. Yes, that's beautiful. That's how you use your imagination and your own words, and you bring it. So exactly. So thank you so much for sharing that. It's exactly what we're talking about, of how to really live it by engaging our own personhood again in words, in pictures, however we do that. Beautiful and fantastic. Thank you everybody for being here. Appreciate it so much. May all the chaylim have refuah, and may all of those that need it have Yeshuas in every way, and may Hashem wipe off the tears from every face, and the Gula Shalem will come soon, and there'll be no more sorrows, and may all the makkahs come on all of those, on all the enemies, and just like Akash Baruch Hu took us out from Mitzrayim, from the 49th level of Tumas, so Akash Baruch Hu is going to take us out now from where we are and bring us to the Holy Land, and the land will be filled with its holiness, with Hashem's holiness. Okay, thanks everybody. Good Shabbos.